Okay, thank you all for joining Sovereigns. It's great to be able to connect with everyone again for our monthly community gathering. So, a quick review of what our agenda will be today. So, the way we typically manage these calls is we provide an update on the basis of the core components, dev, adoption, um, ecosystem, etc. Today, given that we had a little bit of a more dramatic week this week, we will be addressing first the exploit. If you could go to the next slide, agenda, please. So we'll discuss the no agenda slide. We'll discuss the exploit. We'll discuss the budget, which was something we were planning to provide a high level update on anyway, and discuss how the exploit impacts the budget. We'll then open it up to questions, and then we will continue with what would be our regularly scheduled programming dependent on time. So thank you all for joining. And let's start with a discussion of the exploit. So on Tuesday of this week, early in the morning, we suffered our first successful attack. So Sovryn has been operating now for 2 years. We have a very large number of products and infrastructure systems that we've built out. We have endeavored to maintain the highest level of security assurances that we can for all of these systems. But we always knew, and we've been very clear, no system is ever 100% safe. And indeed, our legacy lending system, that is the lending pools where you can lend your money and other people on an over-collateralized basis can borrow, suffered an economic attack, which we will describe briefly today. And the result was that we had an exposure of potentially several millions in losses. In practice, the actual exposure that the attacker was able to so actually maybe before I go into those numbers, a few things that I'd like to point out. Most important thing is that no users will be suffering any loss. And the reason no users will be suffering any loss is because we have several layers of security and safety measures in place. First, um, the safety measures that we have in place help to keep the exploit size limited and have allowed us to recover a significant portion of the funds. Second, I want to give a shout out to the entire team who were engaged, everyone from the communications to community management, and in particular, of course, to the dev team who took methodical, decisive, and swift action, and they were able to identify, limit, and start recovery very quickly. And also, most importantly, they helped to mitigate the situation by putting the systems into maintenance mode. But as of yesterday already, systems have been coming out of maintenance mode and are operating as usual. So, I think we should be really proud of the community of core contributors and devs who are working on this project. And they demonstrated it really remarkable for a team of anonymous NIMs from around the world. The level of coordination, the calm teamwork that they demonstrated was, I was very impressed. So, in addition to that, we've of course had multiple audits. We have a bug bounty, with a bug bounty of up to $1 million. And so, of course, any hack which costs us less than that is in one way a win. But with all of those measures in place, there's clearly always going to continue to be opportunity for us to continue to examine the potential for exploits and to continue to provide to work on improvements and higher degrees of security, both for our systems, but also for the ways in which users can interact with our systems. And then as a final backstop, we have the exchequer, and in this particular case, the exchequer is going to be able to cover any remaining loss after recovery of funds, such that no user will lose funds. So as I mentioned, we have a $1 million bug bounty, and the attacker potentially could have come away with $1.2 million thereabouts in assets. In practice, recovery was close to and is ongoing, but recovery is close to 50% of the funds. The expected loss to exchequer is, we expect it's going to be between value of around $500,000 and $700,000. And this represents about 8% of exchequer funds. Armando will go into greater detail on that shortly. So this is not good. We would prefer for us never to have an exploit, and we prefer for us never to lose any funds. But in the grand scheme of things, this is well within the security budget of the of bug bounty and exploits that we have anticipated for ourselves, and is ultimately also a speed bump in terms of our ability to continue development of the system, and indeed, I think is going to lead to greater security and has provided us with some avenues in terms of thinking around additional security measures that we can introduce in the future. So that's a high level. I'll now turn it over to Aurora, who can describe in greater detail the measures that we took and the exploit. I just want to point out one thing. We expect to and intend to have full transparency around everything that occurred. However, some matters we will not be able to discuss today. For example, some of the measures, the security measures that we currently have in place, and some of the methods that we are undertaking in order to recover funds, for obvious reasons, right? This is still in flight. And so we are working to put together a full post-mortem, which will be available to everyone, of course. But there are, for security reasons, some things that we may still not be able to discuss today. All right. With that, Aurora, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks. So yes, it was a very turbulent Tuesday and also Wednesday, I would say. But in total, we managed the situation well, I think. Of course, there is always room for improvement. So it would, of course, have been better if you had realized the attack even earlier and not just as the attacker was about to move out the funds. But the relevant thing is we did realize that an attack was ongoing while we were still able to act on it. So this was already extremely good. I do not want to go into the exact details of the exploit. We were able to identify the exact issue. For security reasons, I will not disclose it in detail yet. Before we have the fix and everything deployed, you will hear about it in the post-mortem. But on a high level, I can tell you what was already communicated on public, which is that the IUSDT and IRBTC lending pools are affected, and the attacker used a combination of contract calls in a single transaction, which is borrowing funds, closing the position, minting tokens, and burning tokens, and was able to manipulate the token price in a way that he was making a profit in the end. So I expect you to read a full post-mortem of this soon, and please understand our additional cautiousness here to not yet share the exact details of the attack publicly. So the good news is we managed to reconstruct the issue, which means we can also fix it and test and verify that our fix is actually working. We are currently working on this and are using the opportunity for another full scope security review, like at least internally. So we are turning around every stone and are just having a very close look at the different entry points of our system. That being said, the IUSDT and the RBTC pool are the only ones which were vulnerable. And from these pools, only the available asset balance would have been stealable, so to speak. The pools have a amount of tokens which is still available, and another amount of their assets is borrowed out, so it's on the protocol. And only the part which was still available on the pool waiting to be borrowed was the part which could have been stolen. That were at the time of the attack approximately 360,000 USDT and 56 Bitcoin. So approximately $1.5 million worth of dollar. And this means that a bug bounty reporter would have received approximately $150,000, which I think would have been, for multiple reasons, the better take, because it would have been a very noble thing to do. The white hat would have found recognition and admiration, and wouldn't need to now cover his tracks and worry about how to actually use his money without being found. So I think 150,000 for a legal way to report this issue would have been the better option. Maybe we can also use this opportunity to remind everyone again that we do have this bug bounty in place, and hope that in the future, if someone recognizes an issue in our smart contracts, the person decides to report the issue instead and get a handsome reward for it. All right, I think that's basically it from, well, one more thing maybe. Sorry for being so unorganized. I didn't really have the time to prepare for this call. I was busy. So currently part of the system is still being closed, but other parts of the system are running again. Still closed are the bridges, the lending pools, the margin trading protocol, and XUSD. Like I said, the only contracts which are directly involved by the exploit are the lending pools, and therefore also the protocol. The other two products are just in pause because we're very cautious. The AMM 0 and FastBTC are again functional. So we are taking the approach that we're gradually turning on products again as we feel confident in their safety. And now that's really the gist from my side. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Aurora, and thanks for taking the time to put together these thoughts in the midst of working on this. At this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions from anyone on the call. So are there any questions? If not, we will move on. Okay, so next on the agenda is budget. Armando, the floor is yours. Matt, if you could please provide Armando the screen.
Hi everyone, let me share my screen and let me know if you can see it. What I plan on covering over the next 10 minutes are the following. One, a review of treasury balances as of the end of September. as well as taking into account the effects of the exploit. I'm going to be talking about the revised budget that the team has been working on for the last few months, tell you guys a little bit about the budget assumptions and the parameters in which we're working, a little bit about the financial objectives that we're working towards, what our action plan is, what the preliminary budget looks like, and at the end of this report, we've added the Q2 financial reports, balance sheet, and P&L. This deck, as well as a summary of all of the Sovereign Exchequer Committee meetings up until September, will be shared on the wiki and the forum either later today or tomorrow. So in terms of the treasury balances, the sovereign treasury currently has $8.2 million, where the composition is primarily in US dollar stablecoins, 70%. 25% of treasury is held in BTC, and the remaining 5% is split between BNB and ETH. The cash in inventory is 8.1 million, but the protocol has a number of trade receivables, primarily from Babelfish for services that the protocol provided to Babelfish, as well as a number of liabilities. These are updated as of Q2 2022, but we're in the process of...
I apologize for interrupting. I'm not seeing the different slides. I don't know if others are.
Yeah, I've been moving slides. If you can't see, let me know. I'll try something else.
Just see the
Can't see it. It's just on the the first slide.
I see
All
a
right,
different slide
now you successfully shifted.
Okay,
slide.
so I'm just going to leave it like this. I know that sometimes there's a problem with Discord. So I'll just quickly recap. The financial statements for the end of Q2 are at the end of the slide, but we're currently in the process of finalizing, together with the accounting firm that we work with, the financial statements for Q3. That should be ready in a week or two, and those will be shared as well. But as of now, treasury balance, taking into account receivables and liabilities, stands at $8.2 million. We are working on a revised budget for the next 12 to 20 months, and that budget has a number of assumptions baked into it. One is that crypto asset prices remain more or less at current levels. So we're not expecting any recovery primarily in Bitcoin over the next 20 months. We're also assuming that the bear market lasts for an additional 20 months. And just to give a little context, this work started approximately 4 months ago, so towards the end of May, when we were finalizing the last investment round, and when the market turned, the Exchequer realized that we needed to adjust, and at that time, the broad consensus was that we need to factor in 24 months runway at that point, which is currently from beginning of October, an additional 20 months. And we're assuming that no additional capital is raised, no income that's generated from the protocol is diverted to treasury, but remains 100% going to sovereign stakers during that period. And of course, that all user losses incurred by the exploit 2 days ago are covered by treasury funds. In terms of our financial objectives, what we want to make sure that we focus on during this time, obviously, is the fact that we can survive this bear market and have enough funds in the treasury to support OPEX for an additional 20 months. The other is that we retain the amazing talent that have come to work on the protocol, and not only do we retain that talent, but we also have the resources to develop that talent and allow people to develop their skills and ability to contribute on the project while they're working on the project. Our ability to scale up fast. So that basically means that we retain our ability to respond to market conditions, respond to any external changes that might mean that we need to scale up fast, and that means that has impact on our infrastructure, on the internal knowledge of the people working on the protocol, and just our internal mechanisms to do that. And obviously that we're able to deliver growth on the products that we're developing. So high level, what this means for us is we've made a few adjustments to the team and to the way we work. The adoption team has now been merged with the community team, and those teams will share one more optimized budget. The development team is going to focus resources on products with the most traction. And in terms of operations, we're going to share operation resources between Sovryn and Babelfish to save on costs and introduce some additional efficiencies. For non-headcount budget line items, we are not going to reserve budget for additional exchange listings over the next 6 to 12 months. This is considering the fact that we want the liquidity on our current exchanges to be more robust. We want to invest in those rather than invest in additional trading venues when the market is weak. We are focusing on bug bounties as they have proven to be the most efficient way or the best way to uncover potential issues with the protocol. We are optimizing our legal spend and been doing a lot of work on optimizing our infrastructure spend. What I'm going to present here is a preliminary budget proposal. And the reason I say preliminary is because there's still some work that's being done to finalize the strategy roadmap, at least for the next 12 months. And the budget needs to follow that roadmap and support that roadmap. So the numbers here might not be the final numbers, but in any event, once this exercise is complete, that budget will go up for Bitocracy approval. But my expectation is that the numbers will not diverge very much from what we present here. So I think it's important when I go through these numbers to give a little historic context and to explain a little of the timeline over the last 6 months or so. So last year, a budget was approved for Exchequer, and the remit given was that Exchequer can operate within that budget. That budget had a much higher total OPEX spend, closer to between 800,000 and 900,000 monthly. And Exchequer was operating under that budget. It never reached those levels of spend. Spend was historically, looking at 2021, peaked at around 600,000 a month, potentially slightly more. But if you guys recall, we were in the midst of an investment round between March, April, and May. And that investment round was concluded when Exchequer made the decision to take the funds that were committed by investors, and the total amount raised was about 5.4 million, which was less than the 10 million that Exchequer was aiming for. And that decision was primarily due to the fact that the market was turning. There were a lot of contagion events, especially with Celsius, 3 Hours Capital, and Terra, which affected a lot of investors. And the general consensus was that if we continued pursuing the investment, especially an investment that's tracking the price of SOV, we would be left in a worse position than if we closed the investment round. But as soon as the investment round was closed, Exchequer started adapting the budget proactively to fit more or less, or to reflect more or less what happened with the investment round. So if we managed to raise 50% of what we were expecting, we more or less started trimming the expenses and outlay by approximately 50%, which you can see here in a percent change. So the target budget that we're looking for has a total OPEX of slightly under 400,000 a month. And you can see that the majority of change is in non-headcount spend. But obviously there's change to headcount. So there were changes made to headcount. There were contributors who left the project over the last few months in light of these changes. But the overall goal here is to ensure that we have 20 months of runway, even taking into account a loss that's estimated between 400 to 650,000 due to the exploit. But at the same time, provide us with enough resources to accomplish the goals that we set to ourselves and complete the roadmap as it will be presented. That's that for me. I won't go into the Q2 financial reports, but they are here, both the profit and loss and the balance sheet. This will, like I said, this will be shared either later today or tomorrow. But that's it for me. Happy to take any questions now if anyone has anything relating specifically to the budget.
I do, if I can chime in. This is Lord Elvick. Does the budget account for some of the biz dev ops that the team's been working on? Specifically, if there are revenues accruing from things like on and off ramps, does that feed into this, or is that a totally independent mechanic?
So this budget assumes no revenue from any sources, not from the services provided by the system, not from any potential partnerships with external integrations, whether it's on and off ramps or anything else. This budget is assuming no revenue incoming.
Then
Perhaps,
I was going to say I'll wait for the AMA then maybe and talk to Ingalandia and Yago on that topic separately.
so I just want to, we've made some very, the assumption, maybe go back to the assumptions page. The assumptions that are made here are not on the basis of what we anticipate will happen, but rather on the basis of what we want to be able to prepare for. So this is a conservative base case budget. Not exactly a worst case budget, because you can always imagine things getting much, much worse. Nuclear war seems to be around the corner on any given day, but this is a base case for assuming no market growth and no additional capital raised, which we do not believe is the case, no ability to generate income, which we also do not believe is the case. But we don't want to have a base case which has assumptions which are based on future success of any kind.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, then I guess that's all from me. This will be posted on the wiki and on the forum. Look forward to any feedback, questions anyone may have on the forum once you've had time to dig into the numbers a little bit more. And the Exchequer Committee decisions will be shared as well. And then I expect in the next couple of weeks a much more detailed budget, roadmap, and Q3 financials will be shared, and then we will move towards a SIP to approval of the above. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Armando. I'm going to allow for a little bit more time for questions if anyone wants to ask them now. And in the meantime, Matt, you can switch us back to the original deck.
Matt, if you can jump into the insights, the data insights from Yago, that'd be great.
There are some written comments in the channel chat
Sure.
for this.
Um, can you help describe them? Can you go up one
Yeah.
slide?
One slide up, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Six Saturdays asks, I understand the lending pools are still paused. However, you can see the page in the DApp. Should I see my balance in the XUSD lending pool, or is there also no balance shown because of the pause?
Aurora, would you like to take that?
Yeah, sorry, what was the question?
The question was around the balance that they can see using the DApp for the lending pools. They're currently not seeing any balance, if I understand correctly.
That is correct. They cannot see the balance as long as the contracts are paused, because on the loan tokens, the pause is also disabling the view functions. So sorry for that inconvenience, but that's the way it is right now. When the contract is being unpaused, you will be able to see your normal balance again.
Thank you, Aurora. John, any other questions?
Yeah. Psycho Cat asks, when do you think to reopen the bridge?
Okay, so I assume that the bridge that they're referring to is the bridging to both BSC and Ethereum. At this point, I don't think we have a date. We're working to bring all of those systems back online. Aurora, do you have an update which I'm unaware of?
Just the update that we released the funds which got stuck on the bridge today. So everyone who had stuck transfers on the bridge got their tokens by now, but we stopped the bridge again afterwards. So we just wanted to make sure that people got their funds back. And now, just for safety, it's still closed. We have no reason to assume that the bridge is in any way in danger. But given that XUSD is also still paused, it would just lead to other failures to turn one up without the other. So please have some more patience, and we are expecting to have the bridges also again up soon. I
We
cannot
will
give
either.
you.
Thanks, Aurora. We will publish a plan going forward for any of these remaining things if it doesn't look like they're going to happen in a very otherwise, otherwise we'll just bring them back online. One more question I think we have time for.
Sorry, one correction. I said that we released all of the funds, but we only released those on the ETH bridge. On the Binance Smart Chain bridge, they were not yet released.
Light, is there an additional question or should I move on? Okay.
There's
In
a
that
few
I
case,
don't think there are any other questions about that particular topic, unless whoever just unmuted wants to ask a
No, that was
question.
me, Matt. There's questions in the chat, but they're not about the current topic, so I assume they can wait for the AMA.
all right, fantastic. Thank you. All right, in that case, we'll move on to our regularly scheduled programming, which is what we were hoping to update the community about. In particular, I'd like to discuss the growth that we've been seeing in Zero. Then I will also discuss our TVL and some interesting things that we've noticed about the potential impact on valuation. So currently, the amount of Bitcoin in the system is 335 Bitcoin or 6.7 million. As you can see by the graphs, we've been seeing robust and consistent growth in terms of the BTC collateral going into the system. And we've also been seeing growth in the stability pool with close to $300,000 worth of funds in the stability pool. The stability pool is slightly, I think requires a slightly more sophisticated understanding of the system if you want to be a informed user of it, but it offers a very, very interesting proposition, which is basically it's kind of like a tool to buy the dip at a discount. So if there are any significant dips and there are under collateralized positions, those positions get liquidated, and then the stability pool buys those positions at approximately an 8 to 9% discount. So it's a way to buy the dip at an 8 to 9% discount. And what we're starting to see, I think, as people are becoming more familiar with the system, there's a sophisticated class of users who are starting to look to use the stability pool as a way of increasing their Bitcoin stack. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Now, looking at the growth rate of Zero, I think there's some very we're tracking some very impressive metrics. So I'll start with our target rate. Overall, what we would like to be seeing is 20% month-over-month growth to give us a compound annual growth of at least 240%, and that implies a day-over-day growth rate of 0.24%. Those were and remain our target rate for success in this of the system, and that's based on the fact these are the upper levels of what you would typically see in a fast-growing, exponentially growing startup, for example. What we're actually seeing is that since launch of the system, excluding the first 10 days, because that would have started from a very, very small base and therefore would have made these numbers higher. So excluding the first 10 days, we've seen an average daily growth rate of 4.3%. And looking at the last 30 days, we've been seeing an average growth rate of 1.61%. Now, the graph below, the blue graph, is graphing out the day-over-day growth rate. And as you can see, it starts out ridiculously high, impossibly high, hitting on some days as much as 30% day over day. And we would never expect to see that kind of growth sustain, and it's primarily an artifact of the fact that we started out with nothing. And so this graph starts from the 10th day, at which point there were already about 4.5 Bitcoin in the system, but that is still a relatively low base. What we have seen, though, is that over the last 40 days or so, you can see that the graph reduces to where it is currently, which is about 1.61% daily growth. Spiky, which is what you would expect, but roughly 1.61%. Now, we expect to see that continue to drop, but it is quite significantly higher than where we expect it to be. And there is a very significant buffer between the 1.61 and the 0.24 that we were targeting. So given the consistency of the growth and the speed of the growth, I think we have validation, very strong validation, even though it's still quite early, that Zero is performing extremely well. And the fact that it is doing this in a bear market and with zero subsidies being provided of any kind in a market where everything is provided a subsidy, I think is even stronger indication that we are likely seeing very strong product market fit, a very useful and charismatic product. And we hope to continue and potentially, continue the growth. We won't be able, I don't think, realistically, to accelerate the growth rate on a day-over-day basis, but I believe we can keep it elevated. Can we go over to the next slide, please? Now, the second thing that I wanted to bring to bear is something very interesting for me, at least. So I looked at a comparison of the total ecosystem TVL of Stacks and the total ecosystem TVL of Sovryn, where our total ecosystem TVL, in other words, the total assets in our system, includes all of our products. It also includes Babelfish as part of our ecosystem, but it does not include staking. And where we are today is that you can see these indicators, right? These little circles. These circles are to scale. So this is an accurate visual representation of the difference in total TVL across the Sovryn ecosystem and the Stacks ecosystem. Sovryn being about 35 million, Stacks being about 12 million. This is quite remarkable, and in fact, I went further and looked at it beyond this, looking at the totality of DeFi products currently available for Bitcoin across Liquid, Lightning Network, and Stacks, as well as Nomic. Although I wasn't able to get, I'm not sure I've got perfectly accurate information about Nomic in the Cosmos ecosystem, but the Sovryn TVL is actually the majority. In other words, it's greater than all of the others combined. The other aspect of this is that if we look at the fully diluted value of the Sovryn protocol versus the fully diluted value of the Stacks protocol, Sovryn's is about 40 million, Stacks is about 586 million, which means that Sovryn has a fully diluted value to TVL ratio of 1.1, and Stacks has a fully diluted ratio to TVL of 49. And so those circles on the left are also to scale. And so you can see there's not just a complete reversal, but even an asymmetric reversal of the ratio between the two projects. Looking across the ecosystem, we also see that projects like Stack consistently have a higher ratio than Sovryn, and indeed, Sovryn's ratio of TVL to fully diluted value is one of the lowest in the entire universe of crypto. Which, if one is a value investor or is looking at fundamentals, would indicate very strongly that Sovryn is very significantly undervalued and underweighted. So I think two big takeaways from this. First of all, we have, no one is happy that our token price isn't performing better. I think this is evidence, and there's other pieces of evidence as well, but this is a strong piece of evidence that we're not just, it's not just, our subjective opinion that we are undervalued. Our ratio of undervalue within the Bitcoin ecosystem and across the crypto ecosystem just generally is very, very significant.
Iago, can I make a quick comment here?
Sure.
The sovereign treasury currently has about 800,000 of its funds in liquidity. So that's about 2.5% of the figure that you see, the 34.4 million. And obviously, we don't have visibility into what that ratio is in the Stacks ecosystem.
Well, that's true. We haven't at least done an analysis of what it is in the Stacks ecosystem, but we have looked at other leading projects on other elsewhere, and we do know that typically you would see a higher level of treasury and a higher level of ecosystem support in terms of like the chain the chain's treasury actually being in the systems as well. And I think, thank you, Armando, for pointing that out. This actually accentuates the matter even further, right? So Sovryn is relatively under providing low subsidies, and there's the value is user value. This is not, fake it till you make it value. This is organic use by users, which I think even more accentuates and illustrates the situation. So the first takeaway is I think we have a huge amount of headroom to grow. The second question and the second takeaway is why is this the case? And I think one of the reasons is that despite the fact that we are building this ecosystem, we are not perceived as an ecosystem. And the reason for that is the way the market currently perceives ecosystems is as chains. Now, one of the things that we've been discussing for a long time is having a sovereign chain. and we've discussed various mechanisms of having this, such as a roll-up, and the technology is now maturing to a point where I think this is starting to make sense. And so there's currently an effort where we are looking at what it would look like for Sovryn to create its own chain and become more clearly a platform. And I think that in and of itself would rebalance the way that Sovryn is being valued. So expect to hear more about our analysis on that, probably even by next community meeting, as well as depending on what conclusions we come to, we'll be discussing with you guys what we should be considering to do going forward. We're also, I think, be really interested in a good place to have this conversation would be in the forums. Any other points that we should consider in terms of, bringing to the world's attention the fact that this is probably one of the best valued, right? Most, from a fundamentals perspective, projects currently anywhere. That's it for me. Actually, is it okay if I take some questions? I think so. Are there any questions on this topic? Oh, wait, do we have another slide on this? No. All right. So, any questions on that topic before I move on to adoption?
Yes, Tom here.
Yes.
What did you meant with this system or whatever we are you have in mind, or what was discussed?
Well, from
New
early
chain
on, so from early on, we've been discussing what a sovereign chain might look like. We've primarily focused our efforts in two different types of roll-up technology, either optimistic roll-up or zero-knowledge roll-up. For various reasons, we have rejected both of those up until this point. I don't think we'll be able to get into a deeper conversation about what the plan going forward might look like. I think the bigger takeaway right now for us is that this might be important as a growth mechanism, and also I think our sense is that the technology is maturing to the point where we should be giving this a second look. And so I'm just letting you guys know that that is one of the things that we're currently doing.
Okay, one thing to ask on that: does it mean Sovereign is making its own chain or moving to another chain? Will it be proof of work or proof of stake or?
No. So no decisions have been made. If we decide to move forward with a major project of that kind, it will be something that we will discuss. The bigger point is that we're currently investigating this again after not having looked at it as a primary focus for the last few months.
Okay, one last question. Did I miss any information about it? Because you said it is discussed for a long time, but I right now heard the first time of it.
No, we've been discussing roll-ups or having a sovereign chain basically since day one, and in fact, it's even in the black paper.
Okay, so talking about the roll-up.
As one potential method, yes. Okay, we have more stuff to cover, so I'm going to move on. Wayne, over to you.
Thank you, mate. So adoption in the last month. Before we move on to the slides, just at a very high level, we continue to move forward with tracking well against all of our key performance metrics, both against our high-level goals, which is driving product adoption on products like Zero, moving forward TVL on Zero, driving increased levels of traffic to the site, broadening our achievable market and our brand awareness. Key stats around reach through through marketing activity, adoption activity, engagement on our social activity, on-site content, off-site content, traffic to the site, conversion metrics around 0 continue to go up month on month.
I think you want to move one slide up because right now we're not seeing it.
Yeah, despite challenging marketing conditions, all the kind of key metrics, which I'll get into, continue to move forward. So what we're working on currently over the last month is 0 promotion and content around 0 to drive up TVL and adoption as much as possible. As Iago shared, linear growth in that TVL, seeing growth in website traffic, both new users and an increase in retention and loyalty of customers, which is really good off the back of 0. We are kicking off a project of work for growing our key digital channels, being Twitter and YouTube first, to further extend the achievable market through marketing efforts. I think you guys would have seen a new range of content being produced in the last few months, specifically around 0, and some very cool video content coming out. Broader range of written content. We're upping that cadence in the coming months. You'll see a YouTube series coming out to attract new audiences to Sovryn and to our key products. Long form video content, short form video content, increased cadence of educational content the team's been working on, and written content for the website and offsite. We have we will do a reveal to the community once we are complete and ready to show off this amazing new looking website and brand. But the key update here is that production with the agency is complete, and we've had a dev site passed off to us. What we are doing now on our side is final content migrations, migrating across all the blog articles, reskinning the wiki, migrating the wiki content, and doing the final touches on the site. So I'm very much looking forward to showing that off to the audience here. I think it's an amazing UX and a very stunning brand that Fineline team have put together. That's going to make us really stand out in market. As part of that, we're planning for the new brand launch, full omni-channel marketing content, social, potentially a launch event, a big reveal. Date will be confirmed once we finish dev and we have a few of our strategy pieces locked in. Continue to optimize all of our organic content, working on a big audience and market segmentation project. And as I'll touch on soon, through purely organic means, the team has done amazingly well at driving 6 million plus, close to 7 million TVL on 0, doubling our website traffic in the last 4 to 5 months, drastically increasing engagement rates on all of our kind of blog posts, on-site content, engagement rates across Twitter, resharing across Twitter. And in the background, they've also been trialing which paid advertising works for us. I think people who work in marketing and know crypto will know the things like SEM, display, social, are typically quite hard to get any traction with. We get blocked. But we've been trialing which channels work, benchmarking some data and analytics to move forward with the brand launch with a big song and dance. And some of the big projects and kind of technical debt is now getting ticked off, which is nice. The website, as mentioned, we've completed a large-scale analytics program of work, tagged up every user interaction across the website and the DApp. And we're kicking off an audience segmentation project, which will be invaluable for marketing to understand who our most valuable customers are and how we can find more of them and continue to grow. So next slide, Matt. This is a continuation of what we showed last month. We can see that despite BTC price, an assumption around current market conditions, website traffic has maintained. That blue line, which is actually quite positive, is we were seeing about 90% new users coming to the website, which while that is a good news story in terms of broadening our reach, it also speaks to a need to focus on retention, which I think the team has been proactively doing in the last month through community comms, through marketing activity, email activity, retargeting activity around Zero. And we're seeing people returning to the site off the back of Zero and off the back of recent activity. So loyalty increasing. Average 13% month-on-month growth of site traffic since March. 12% month-on-month growth of new users since March, and nearly double total traffic to the website since March. So across the board, we're seeing more eyes on the project. We're seeing more reach. We're seeing more click-throughs. Post click-through, when this traffic arrives at the site, we're seeing higher levels of engagement, more pages per session, higher scroll depth on blogs, less exit rate into the DApp. So all of the key metrics in terms of reach and through the sales funnel are performing as they should, and we hope to see continued incremental growth. Next slide, Matt. We showed a pretty positive trend in our, looking at Twitter. We showed a very positive trend last month in terms of the total impressions delivered, profile visits, mentions, increase in followers. This is September now, and we're seeing another increase on top of August. So all heading in the right direction. Channel continues to grow, continue to get more organic reach, continue to get more organic engagements. Our content, especially our video content, is getting more and more reach and more engagements. So we measure all these key stats on Twitter, and everything in terms of social is moving in the right direction in terms of both reach, audience growth, click-throughs, post-click engagement. So good stats there for September. Next one, Matt. Oh, and that's so that's adoption, Yago, the high-level stats.
Yeah, so I think, big takeaway both from product growth and adoption growth is we are in the midst of this bear market, yet we're still managing to generate compound month-over-month growth. This is basically exponential growth, and we're going to look to continue and maintain that. And if we do continue and maintain that, we're going to see we're going to see compounding returns. The magic of exponential growth. There's nothing, and then there's everything. So we're very pleased, and I have, a big shout out to the adoption team who have really been managing to improve pretty much every single metric that we're focused on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the community shout outs. We've got 1 minute left.
Matt, do you want to do the shout outs, or Yago?
Can I do a shout out?
Sure.
I want to give a shout out to Spro, because what I understand is you guys would have a more serious thing going on if it wasn't for him. So shout out to Spro and all the CMs.
Thank you. Yes, I think the community management team have been performing extremely well. Really, the communication was very impressive across the team. Magnus, Matt, which one of you is doing the shout outs?
I'll do it. It's hard to do it with both screens at the same time. So yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to, R. Thomas for his amazing memes, Travis Trades for his just genius comical Zero videos. They've just been going viral with thousands of views. Another shout out to Christian, who's been in Telegram Dojo just making these awesome stickers and memes of Zero, which, are great for social posts, great for community engagement and all of that. And, another shout out to Sovereign Origin, just for all the work he's doing on Zero and his algorithm, and always keeping us updated on how his super hodl strategy is going on Twitter. And of course, David Seroy's attending the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, so that will be very interesting for all who are attending, to show Sovryn off a little bit and get more exposure at these kind of events. Legacy is one of the Spanish community members who's just tipping all his satoshis to everyone on the Telegram groups, and I think we all love his enthusiasm, engagement. So shout out to him. And a new community member, Japheth Percy. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's taken an initiative and started his own Sovryn group for an African Nigerian crypto community. So congrats to him, and it's good to see community members, taking initiative and trying to support Sovryn any way they can. And I have to give a good shout out to One Digit, fellow colleague, just always helping me and just always tweeting some incredible threads just on freedom, Bitcoin, and Sovryn. And just want to give a big shout out to the community, and I really enjoy working here. So thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, with that, and these thanks to also members of our community who bring this call to its official close. We will stay on for a few minutes for any additional questions and any chat. And thank you all. Stay sovereign.
There was a question that perhaps Wayne could answer it's from Travis Trades. He's asking, what kind of audiences does Sovryn want to market Zero to? Have we thought about bringing its attention to past users of Celsius or other centralized exchanges, perhaps Swan Bitcoin or other businesses?
We're undertaking a segmentation piece of work now with Zero. Number one, using all available data sets. So we're using on-chain data to understand what value, potential customer lifetime value Zero customers have, what cross-sell potential they have for different features on the platform, and then matching that data against those cohorts against, take the most valuable customer with the highest customer lifetime value, do a data match into analytics and reverse map that into what social channels they're coming from, what publications they read, what keywords on search are appealing to them. So we are kicking off a segmentation piece of work specifically for Zero customers to understand who the highest value cohort is and how we can reach them. As part of that piece of work, we will be looking at other protocols, other exchanges that have similar customer sets we can reach out to. I think Zero has a very broad reach. An example of that is our Zero promotion has been working very well on LinkedIn in terms of conversion, which is not typical. We usually see Twitter as our highest converting channel. What that says to me is Zero is appealing to a broader range of crypto enthusiasts, people potentially just starting to touch on DeFi, a much larger audience who's becoming disassociated with traditional financial institutions. I think there's a huge amount of angles, cohorts, publishers, audiences we can go for Zero. So currently we're just trying to understand who those most valuable cohorts are, and how do we get more of those onto the platform. So it's a piece of work that we're undertaking currently, and I'll be happy to share with the community once we have more insight.
Thank you, Wayne.
I'll give the floor to Lord Elvic, who had a topic he wanted to raise. Is he still here?
Anyone else in the meantime like to ask any questions or discuss anything?
Looks like he had to drop. There are a bunch of questions in the chat on the sidebar.
So yeah, I could probably pull one from KCO. He said, are you guys concerned about the current RSK PalPeg situation and the reliability of this, given that there's no estimated date to resume our BTC to BTC operation? Does fast BTC have good liquidity to absorb this demand?
Excellent question. So, as some of you may know, there was coincidentally on the same day a bug was apparently discovered in Powpeg, which meant that Bitcoin is not currently being peg outs are not currently being processed. So we're the primary team working on this is the IOV Labs team. We're working with them a little bit to try and see what the solution will be. The solution is going to require a hard fork of rootstock. And in the meantime, we're looking to assist. So FastBTC works and allows both peg in and peg out. And so right now, the liquidity on FastBTC is fine. And if there is an issue with liquidity, we'll be looking to add additional liquidity so that even with the PowPeg interruption, the free flow of Bitcoin on and off the rootstock system is uninterrupted.
Diego, are you talking by any chance?
No, I was just
Okay.
saying this is an open. I actually did talk, but maybe I wasn't mute. I said this is an open forum. If anyone wants to raise any additional topics, let's do that. Otherwise, I think we'll bring it to a close.
I saw a question from Tom or Tiam. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Should we avoid any transaction in the platform at all? And my answer to that question would be, of course, you know, your keys, your responsibility to decide what software you choose to interact with your wallet. But we turned the parts of the protocol on that we did because we believe they're safe to use. So make of that what you will.
All right. Okay. I think we'll bring this to a close. I see that there is ongoing conversation in the community chat here on the sidebar. I propose we move it to. If we close this room, does the community chat bar disappear? I assume it might. In any event, I
No, it
suggest.
stays.
Oh, okay. Well, then I think we can continue the asynchronous text conversation, and we bring this call to a close. Thanks very much to all the sovereigns who joined.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Stay sovereign, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.